Hello, ODAC fans, and welcome to our latest edition of ODAC Chat. My name is JJ Nekloff. I'm the Associate Commissioner with the Old Dominion Athletic Conference. And today we have with us Denver Davis, the Director of Cross Country and Track and Field at Bridgewater College. Denver, how you doing today?
Doing great, JJ. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I called that the ODAC Chat, and this is really the first one that we've branded out. So kind of, I guess, congratulations there and welcome to be on the first ODAC Chat, as we say it.
Oh, it's a pleasure and a privilege, no doubt.
Well, and you're a great one to have here because we'll talk about somebody who's in 11th season now at Bridgewater. You've helped to really build, I don't want to call it a juggernaut of a program, but let's go ahead and do that. Let's call it a juggernaut of a program because you've done a really nice job over there with some of your partners putting this program together, both on the cross country and track and field side. And we're going to focus mainly on track and field here today with you with Bridgewater, but overall, just the process. Talk about what it's been like for you guys and the plan that you've had to build this program the way it is right now.
Yeah, so like you said, this is my 11th year at Bridgewater, and it's I'm not sure how I've been here for 11 years, but they let me stick around. And when the former director Brian Flynn, who left a couple of years ago, when he got hired as the cross country coach back in the summer of 2010. He gave me a call. He knew I wanted to get into college coaching and said, "Hey, I just got the job at Bridgewater. I'm going to need an assistant. Do you want to come down?" And I sort of rolled the dice and came down here and sort of made things work long term and slid into this role. And it, the college felt like it was kind of a natural transition with Brian leaving. But, the building of the program really, it was really a large recruiting effort. Most college coaches will tell you that recruiting is a big part of what they do. When Brian and I got here, we made a decision that we were going to recruit. It was Brian's first head coaching job. It was my first college coaching job. I had been coaching high school for 5 years prior. And, we were young. We were in our late 20s. We were enthusiastic and we were single and we were out there beating the bushes,
Right.
And that's the grind you got to go on. And so we committed to that process for several years. We remained pretty committed to that process throughout. And one of the things for us that's been nice here at Bridgewater is we haven't been heavy in terms of numbers driven and having a roster of a specific size. And, it's been nice. I would not consider us in any pressures of being kind of an enrollment sport like track can often be viewed as at some institutions. And so that's really allowed us to recruit high caliber athletes and really focus in on getting the athletes here that we wanted, and not just having to fill slots and have bodies around. And that makes a real difference. We certainly haven't had the largest roster in the conference by any means, particularly in the last handful of years. But as one of the coaches who used to be in the conference up until about a year ago, said to me pretty early on when it was Kirk Nauman at Roanoke, he said, you guys don't have a big team, but you got some heavy hitters. And, I said, yeah, I guess we do. So that's kind of been the process for us. Outside of that, the culture shift that we had here, and the leadership that Brian and I tried to really instill in our athletes, the expectations that we put into place in terms of work, buy-in, what they needed to do on a daily basis to have that success, I think really laid a foundation for what ended up happening here over the last decade and the success that our programs had. So, definitely a two-pronged piece. Once we got athletes to start buying in, and especially once they tasted that initial little bit of success, they wanted more and more and more and more of it. And, our job now at this point as a coaching staff is really to continue to recruit at a high level, to get athletes in here that are going to impact our team at the conference level and beyond, and to cultivate and really maintain and guard that culture that we have, and really keep that going. I told my athletes this past week in a meeting that the expectations aren't high at this point because we have said that they're high as a coaching staff. We are simply maintaining an expectation that has been set by athletes that have come previously through the program. And I said, you guys are the ones setting the standard, and we're just maintaining it for you all and helping you guys stay focused on it. So, the last decade's been real successful for us. Cross country and track, all told, we've won 18 conference titles in the last 10 years. And, we're hoping that the next 10 years are going to be just as generous to us as we move forward.
Well, I mean, a couple observations from there. Number one, congratulations on all that success, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But number two, I'm surprised you got Kurt Nauman to talk track and field and not weather. That's kind of he's an armchair weatherman he wants to be. But
this is his hobby on the side. Yeah, absolutely.
But to the quality of your program, there's no doubt everything that you said in there about more quality than quantity that you have in your targeted recruiting. It's really paid off for you. People like Devontae Womack, national champion, Callista Ariel, multi All-American, Amber Sellen, runner-up in events or in top 3 in events at the national meet in track and field. Talk a little bit about some of those standout athletes, and we can go deeper and deeper. I've got names in front of me here: Jeremy Hegel, Alex Galloway, a lot of different people you can talk about. Just kind of talk what it's like to have an athlete like that reach that type of pinnacle achievement, if you will, and the pride that you feel in that.
The first thing I want to say about all of those athletes, and our program in particular, our program is development oriented 100%. And all of those athletes that we've had, Amber and Devontae and Callista and Jamie and there's several other names in there over the last handful of years, but they were good high school athletes that we knew were going to help us at the conference level significantly by the time they graduated. I don't think a single one of them came in and we had any conversation during the recruiting process or even during their freshman year as a coaching staff or with them as, hey, you're going to be an All-American by the time you leave here. Those athletes that have really stood out for us in the last decade have really worked for that. They have developed, they really bought in, they took the time to dedicate themselves to getting to that level. The amount of work that goes into just qualifying for the national meet, let alone being an All-American, and then let alone being a national champion, a lot of that is unseen, and people don't realize what that takes. They don't realize the lifestyle change a lot of those athletes embrace to make that happen for them. So I will say up front, they probably did 90% of the work. And the other coaches, we're helping guide them and providing them with training tools and things to help get them there. But I don't get on the line and run the race. It is certainly them. And in that way. Now, as far as working with folks like that and coaching folks like that, it's always a privilege, and it's something, I've been unbelievably lucky in my short time here that, I've had 2 athletes win 4 national titles. There are coaches that coach 30 plus years and never have an athlete win a national title.
You're right.
There are some coaches that never get an athlete to become an All-American. We've had 31 All-Americans since 2016 here in our program among a handful of folks. And, you mentioned Amber, she contributed 11 of those. Yes. And Devontae's contributed 6 or 7 of those. And so, those folks that come in here and do that, it's just such a special thing. And it's something that, I'll be lucky if I ever have another national champion again in my career. And if I get the privilege to work with athletes like that ever again. And back to the recruiting thing, we hope we're recruiting athletes that are going to make the same turn that Callista and Jamie and Devontae and those folks made during their careers here. So there was a second part to your question, but
Well, no. You're hitting the nail on the head, because we can really segue into who's next up. Maybe putting you on the spot a little bit, and you can stay general with it. Maybe you don't have any names right now because you don't want to put any added pressure on somebody. But I would be remiss if I didn't say who's next coming down the line at Bridgewater.
Yeah. So one of the people who's currently on our team, one of our senior guys, Chase Rosenthal, He's a very good multi-athlete.
Very good.
He was on the bubble of qualifying for nationals in the heptathlon indoors last year. He was the first person out of nationals the year before in the spring. After doing his first and only decathlon ever, he missed qualifying by 11 points. So if the season happens and we have things going the way we want to go this year, Chase is certainly probably in a good spot if he stays healthy and stays focused, and he's certainly driven. He's probably one of those guys that's going to be next in that spotlight for us. I can't say for sure right now as far as the rest of our team goes. We're extremely young. And I know we're going to talk about that here in a little bit.
Yep.
So I'm not going to float any names right now because we've got a lot of freshmen on our team in particular that very similar profiles coming out of high school to some of the folks we've talked about. It's just going to come down to the work and the effort that they're going to put in and what they want to do while they're here in 4 years and what kind of development we see from them. So we got some people in the pipeline, I think. I feel good about a few of our young folks, and obviously my fingers are crossed that they pan out and we get them in the right lane and doing the right things and continue to have a presence at the national level. So
absolutely. And before we get any more deeper into this here, let's take a quick word from Virginia Farm Bureau Insurance.
With over 100 local offices, Virginia Farm Bureau agents are part of your community. If you want insurance from a company that knows you, get to know us.
Well, Denver, we thank our friends at Virginia Farm Bureau Insurance, one of the sponsors here for the ODAC, that help us do championships and conduct seasons. And one of the things that you said there in that last segment was, if we have the season, then talk about your young squad right now. So it just so happens that we're in the situation that we've been in for the past several months, working through the COVID-19 pandemic. Talk about the challenges that you have right now training with your squad, especially given that they're as young as they are right now.
Sure. The biggest challenge is just the uncertainty. And I think the uncertainty of what's coming, in the next 6 months for our athletes is sometimes tough to deal with mentally. So I'd say the biggest challenge is making sure everybody's staying motivated, making sure everybody's staying focused, and that they're mentally checked in for where we're at in the time of year and what we need to be accomplishing right now. It's mid-September. And that kind of thing. From a training perspective, I've been having conversations with athletes this week, and right. A couple of things. We've tried to start up athletics here at Bridgewater, and that means a much earlier start right now with the amendments to the NCAA rules for how we can utilize days versus weeks right now, and those kinds of things. So our start date was supposed to be November 2nd. And in most years for our program, we're right at the end of October, beginning of November. We're on a pause here right now with athletics for the next week and a half. Actually, next week we're in the middle of a 2-week pause. And I told my athletes, I said, listen, guys, I said, if we had a normal season right now, you guys would be on your own working out. There'd be no track practices. There'd be nothing going on. It would be, this is no different, right? Mm-hmm. So trying to keep that perspective for them, right. And help them understand that even if they're working out on their own right now, like that's what they'd be doing right now at this time of year anyway, and doing voluntary workouts and doing voluntary lifts and those kinds of things to get ready for November. The other piece with that is right now, and we know things are coming down the pipe. We know there's going to be some changes with the formats for the spring. We know the NCAA is going to try and make some decisions on winter and spring championships coming up. But I said, in the meantime, I said, right now, nothing's different. I said, you guys still have a season to prepare for. And I said, that's the other mindset we've really got to be in, is that you all are getting ready to compete. And whether that competition starts in January or February or March, I said, when we find out that first day of competition, we'll make the adjustments then. But right now, we're staying the path. We're staying on our normal fall schedule, our normal training segments that we're on right now. And that's really been the big message that we're taking to the whole team is we're trying to maintain business as usual, because at the end of the day, if we get out of our lane and we get out of doing what we would normally be doing during this time, if we as coaches deviate from our plan, we're not going to set our athletes up for success in any way. And that's something I've talked with my staff about, and we're very in unison on that, it's September. We're going to train like it's September. And when October comes, we'll train like it's October, and November, and so on. So I think for them, that hopefully provides some stability and like I said, some perspective. And, we're working with a lot of new different ways of doing things, and having masks and social distancing, and, making sure we're following Department of Health guidelines and CDC guidelines, and trying to be as safe as we can in what we're doing. And they've been really great with that, and cooperative and understanding. And so I think they get it. I think they know what's on the line. And I think there's enthusiasm and there's a motivation to get back to doing what we want to do. And that's get on the track and on the runway and in the circle, and run, sprint, jump, and throw, and hurdle, and do all those fun things. So I don't like to use the word challenging right now.
Right.
And it's, like I said, we're just trying to stay on the path and do what we need to do. And it is what it is right now. That's the phrase.
That is, I've said it more times than I want to say. And I think, there have been a lot of meetings that we've had over the last several months, from ADs levels, a little bit here and there with coaches, regional meetings amongst conferences and whatnot, as we try to share ideas and really what people are doing. That conversation has started with cross country and track and field this past weekend, and briefly and in a very general manner, kind of talk about just some of the idea generation that, should we be able to compete coming up here this spring, what's some of the things that we're trying to toss around to try to come up with a format to work toward to really having a competitive, meaningful season?
Sure. So yeah, the cross country coaches in the league have been talking, and the track coaches have had some emails flying around, and just sort of getting some feedback from folks at this point. And starting that discussion with the conference office about, what we're going to do. And I think the two biggest challenges that have emerged from those conversations are, how long are we going to wait to find out what the NCAA is going to do?
Right.
And allow the spring championship and winter championship decisions to then dictate, decisions that we might make. And the other big discussion is, what are the challenges in trying to compete 3 championships in about a 5-month period at the conference level? And is that something that's beneficial for our athletes? And is that something that we as coaches are ready to take on? We've got 3 or 4 different scenarios kind of cooking. There's a lot of if-then going on right now. If the NCAA has winter and spring championships, then X, Y, and Z. If the NCAA cancels winter championships but keeps spring championships, then X, Y, and Z.
Sounds like a spreadsheet for me. You're absolutely right. No doubt about it.
So we want to basically, at the end of the day, create a situation that benefits, our league as a whole. One of the things we've talked about is a focus on outdoor track, simply because of the distance away from now that would occur, giving more time for, perhaps changes in the landscape with the coronavirus and restrictions, and,
right.
The hope that's out there for treatments and those kinds of things, and knowing that that's kind of where we might focus. Where do we fit a cross-country season in? Do we fit a cross-country season in? Where do we fit an indoor season in, and how, and the safety concerns with being in an indoor building with large numbers of athletes and coaches. So there's a lot of challenges that we're trying to figure out and address, and scenarios that, we aren't sure what the right answer is, but we're going to do our best to figure it out. At the end of the day, all of us want to contest at least a championship this season.
Right.
We want to contest a championship, I think, in an environment where all of the schools are participating, and it's not, an asterisk type season where some schools opted out and some schools were in, and, maybe we have a smaller field. So we're hopeful for that. We want something meaningful for our athletes. The nice thing with our sport, or sports, is, if a cross-country season doesn't happen, our distance runners have a lot of opportunities on the track, whether it's indoor or outdoor track, because of the events from the 800 meter all the way to the 10K. And so we're not really going to lose a lot of opportunities, I think, no matter how we slice it. So It's feels like a daunting task, but I think it's something that, we're going to figure out, just like everybody else has been figuring this stuff out.
You're absolutely right. We've all been feeling it as we
Yep.
work through it. I mean, I can even tell you from the administrative level here too. I like having these interviews and talking with people that sometimes I don't get to chat with in a setting like this, but I'd rather be supplemental as we were playing games and having meets and having matches and things like that.
Yep.
But and eventually we'll get back to that. So let's say that we're there here in the spring. Let's take a look at the ODAC here right now, the talent level that we've got out there. And
Sure.
feel free to split it up, women and men, if you want to. And we'll take a couple minutes, 30 seconds to a minute for each one here. But just talk about the growth that you've seen in your time of the track and field ranks here in the ODAC and just what we have out there right now, which is really competitive. And the majority of the records are held by athletes from 2010 through the last couple seasons.
Sure. My time goes way back because I'm a Lynchburg alum, and so I competed in the ODAC back in the early 2000s. On the track side of things, when I was in college, there were 5 programs through my junior year, and then Virginia Wesleyan added track my senior year, and there were 6 schools in the conference that sponsored track and field. Now 13 of the 15 schools in the conference sponsor track and field. So the conference has doubled in size in our sport. It's made it much deeper, much more competitive.
The championship manual is now broader and way more detailed than it used to be.
We have a championship manual that used to not exist until about, I think, 2012. When Doug Thomas, who used to be the Lynchburg coach, sat down and really put that document together, and myself and a couple other coaches in the league, lent some advice and help with that, and that's evolved. So the conference has gotten a lot more competitive. That's probably the biggest shift in my time in the ODAC, and the title changing hands pretty regularly, whether it's been us, Lynchburg, W&L, Roanoke on the women's side. There's a lot more dynamic there than there used to be when the conference was dominated by Lynchburg. Especially on the men's side, and when the conference was dominated by Roanoke on the women's side for such a long time. So it's kind of nice to see. I think it makes the meets a little more exciting. We've had very close meets the last handful of years. Thinking back to some of the more recent ones with us on the women's side for indoor, I think there were 2 or 3 years in a row where we might have beaten W&L by 1, 2, 3 points on the women's side, and it came down to the wire. So there have been exciting meets. There have been competitive meets. The individual success in the conference, I think, has also dramatically improved over the years. At the national level, I think representation by the conference has been pretty significant. We've sent pretty large delegations from the ODAC to NCAAs for indoor and outdoor championships. And the great part about that is most of those athletes have had a significant amount of success, earning All-Americans, winning national titles. You think outside of our program, Hannah Chapel-Dick at EMU and the success she had over the years as a distance runner there. More recently, Joe O'Connor at W&L, who was pole vault All-American this year. And Lynchburg, I think, sent 2 or 3 athletes to NCAAs for indoor this year. All ended up being All-Americans there. So it's harder. It's harder to win. It's harder to have success. More teams have more standout athletes on them. I think a lot of that is due to, coaching changeovers in the conference. I think there's been an infusion in the last 10 years of younger coaches, new coaches to the conference. They've brought in a lot more recruits. Teams have gotten bigger. They have been more motivated and enthusiastic about rising the level of competition in the conference, and it's benefited all of us. It's made us have to work harder here at Bridgewater to maintain certain levels of competitiveness, and I know it's done the same for Washington and Lee and Roanoke and Lynchburg, and Shenandoah has been building their program a great deal in the last few years, and EMU has fielded some very competitive teams in the last 10 years. So, it's good. It's exciting. I hope one day we have 15 schools with track in the conference out of 15. and we have a large conference meet. I think it's just going to make us better and continue to make us more prominent on a national level. And I think ultimately that's what a lot of us would like to see from our programs.
I think you're absolutely right. I think it's one of the pillars of what a conference should be, of the many pillars, is to drive the members amongst themselves and really elevate the league as a whole.
Right.
Denver, I want to thank you very much for providing us a great landscape of the track and field that we have here in the ODAC. And hopefully we get to be back out there in the spring and see everybody compete.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, JJ. Y'all take care.
ODAC fans, stay tuned to our next ODAC chat.